athletes, take your mark. Get set. It's time for the Addict to Athlete podcast. Hey, everybody out there, Coach Blue Robinson here. Hey, thank you so much for downloading, sharing, and subscribing to the podcast. We greatly appreciate you doing so. And if it's not too much trouble, please jump on our website, addicttoathlete.org. You're going to find all kinds of content from backlog podcasts to information about recovery, some tips and some information that will help you start your journey. And also to be able to contact us. Our chapters throughout the state of Utah and beyond. We'd love to have you guys take a look at what we do for our recovery and how we erase the addiction by replacing it with things of greater value. So athletes, today we've got a great guest, one that comes from Arizona. I think that you all are familiar. Nope. Are you not from Arizona?
Oregon.
You're from Oregon?
No, I'm from Oregon.
Oh, man.
Yes, I'm from Oregon.
I was looking at your pictures, man, and I'm like, wait a second. That looks gorgeous for like Arizona, but that looks too mountainous for down there. So awesome. James, you're from Oregon. So James, jump in, tell us a little bit about yourself, man. Brock Bevel speaks highly of you, and so I'd love to know your journey because, brother, you took a double sucker punch in life and you've overcome it, and I would say doing well. So welcome to the podcast. Tell us a little bit about you.
Well, my name is James. I'm a father of two. I have a son who's 16 and a daughter who's 13. And I grew up in a home of addicts and had a lot of early childhood trauma that led to anger. That anger led to fear. That fear led to addiction at a very young age. And then I just sort of drifted through life, not really knowing who I was because I never really grew, I guess, in a sense of in a level of maturity that I should have. In some areas of my life, I probably grew up way too fast. In other areas of my life, I didn't even start to mature until probably 40.
Wow. Yeah.
I found drugs and alcohol going into my 7th grade year, so just before I turned 13, and obviously it wasn't always bad until it got really bad. And then when we get to that part of my story, we'll dive into deeper. But I'm going back to school full time. I work full time. I'm a full time father. I go to church. I go to Bible study. I exercise profusely. And I'm a pretty busy human being. And I try to, or at least I try to be as productive as I can with each moment that I've been blessed and given.
Jeez, man.
I mean, it is what it really boils down to is like, as humans, we often take for granted the miracle of waking up.
Yeah.
As somebody who regretted waking up for a very long time, I hated the fact that I woke up. To go from that extreme to where I'm at now, I try not to take any moment that I'm given for granted. I mean, am I perfect at it? No, absolutely not. But I do my best.
Gotcha. With a history of family substance abuse, I mean, my story is one and the same, brother. Like it was a lot of like kind of, well, this is the normal thing. And so of course, as life just kind of unfolded, it seemed as though that was the path everyone was taking. And my life would have been very different if I didn't have that wake up moment too. Tell me a little bit about what that was like for you. Was it kind of did you feel like I did to a certain degree where you're kind of on your own, but like there's supposed to be family and love around, but it's kind of like hit and miss? I mean, does that make sense? Like so many of us have this, and I don't think we really put the stock into this is where these behaviors are learned, and to unlearn those is rough, isn't it?
It is very rough, and it's interesting that you say that, is because I think that's exactly it. It's like I don't ever remember not choosing that lifestyle. Like there was never like a, hey, is this the right thing to do? Because it was what I was shown. It was everyone around me's coping mechanism.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't drugs and alcohol, it was hiding or running from responsibilities or violence and anger.
Yeah.
And so that's what I learned. And it is difficult to, like, when I started this journey, I was like, I had tried to get sober. Let me backtrack. I tried to get sober about the time my son was born. And I wasn't mature enough to grasp the concepts of what really being sober was, like to heal from that trauma that led to me being an addict.
Yes.
And so when this started, I was like, okay, I've got to, if this is what I am, my goal is to remain sober, but it isn't just quitting the drugs and the booze, it's healing whatever I'm running from.
There you go.
And I think that's that's where it really boils down to, is it's like, okay, it was a lot of learned behavior. That's what I mean, I don't know if it was, part of me thinks part of why I started so young was like I wanted the approval of my father, and I knew that my dad drank and he did drugs. So if I'm a man like my dad, I'm going to drink and do drugs.
Yeah.
And that didn't turn out real well.
Dude, but this is the
as
thing,
we'll
though, man.
discuss.
But I'm blown away by it because, brother, you're speaking words that I use, and not a lot of us guys use words like trauma. We kind of think alpha males, beat the chest, like the apes, right? It's crazy because really so much of what we experience is based off of that trauma. When did you start realizing, like, hey, wait a second, the way this is all flowing, the way this is all going, this isn't normal? Because our normal was kind of that cycle of abuse, just like neglect, abandonment, all that stuff. When did you wake up and you're like, wait a second, this sucks. This isn't how it should be. This is trauma.
Yeah, I don't know if I realized it was trauma, but my mom and my stepdad had kind of a volatile relationship towards the end of their relationship, which was towards the end of high school for me. So I spent a lot of time with my two best friends, who happen to be brothers at this phase in my life. I spent a lot of time in their house, and I think that was the first time, especially being able to go back as an adult and reflect on it.
Yeah.
Like I saw a healthy relationship. I didn't realize maybe in those moments
true.
that, man, my life is full of a lot of trauma and cussing and yelling and unhappy people.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And like to be able to go into that environment and then dissect it as an adult and go, wow, this is what a loving marriage looks like. This is what a engaged father looks like. This is what a mother who's engaged truly, not that my mom wasn't engaged, but I was from a first previous marriage.
Yeah.
My stepdad was not a very active father.
Yeah.
He worked hard, and I don't want to belittle anyone, because not everyone everyone carries their own traumas and issues from whatever they have, and we don't adjust as adults often, and we bury ourselves in all kinds of things. But my mom was left with two little girls, one of them being my littlest sister, who was diabetic. So in this age of coming of age, I didn't necessarily need my mom. My dad abandoned me from 14 to 17, and my stepdad was dealing with a lot of issues that ended up becoming prevalent in my own life.
Yeah.
And so there was this whole gap of no one was really paying attention to me.
There you go.
And so it was interesting to see, and then as an adult to be able to look back and go, I think that's when I realized, oh wow, my life is really not, whatever normal is, quote unquote. Because but it's been later in life learning and being able to appreciate being able to my best friend's family opening their door to me and basically let me stay there anytime I wanted. Yeah, it was huge. It was, it opened up a world of okay, this is what a loving father looks like. This is how a father is engaged with it. And I didn't do a very good job of that as a father for the first few years.
You didn't know.
I've learned.
You didn't know. Yeah.
I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know. And then, as I've gotten sober and I've connected with, I'm a pretty religious human being. As I've connected with my heavenly Father,
there you go.
My skills of being a father have amplified, and I think that's just it. It's I use the words trauma, and I'm sure you do too, because as a quote unquote, I consider myself a pretty alpha male.
Yeah.
I sat in torment for almost over half a decade, trying to be an alpha male, but at the same time completely broken and wondering where anyone was at to try to help me. I didn't realize that the help I needed was there, but I was too afraid to swim to take that lifeline until it almost cost me my life.
Man, yeah. See, brother, you're talking amazing stuff here, man. We jumped right into it because, listeners, I need you guys to understand the whole experience of what James is talking about here. So, James, what you're talking about is so important. Listeners, you have to understand this, because you, James, just said the exact same thing that I recognized in a healthy family with friends as I went to their home for the very first time. And I'm like, why do you guys all look the same? Well, because they had the same mom and same dad, right? You guys all have the same last name. I'm like, that is so weird. Because my mother married at 14. It was a kid having kids. And so, my two oldest siblings have a different dad. My sister has a different dad. I have a different dad. She was married and divorced like 9 times. So I'm like, what is this? And I remember that same thing, man. Like, dude, the emotional safety in this home is very different. Like, people aren't yelling. Like, people are talking like they're listening to their kids. You realize that, and you're like, wait a second. And you're right, man. When you have your own kids, I was terrified when I had my first kid. I'm like, dude, dads hurt kids. And so I had to learn by doing the opposite of what all the millions of stepdads that my mom did. You did the same thing, it sounds like. And so it was worth jumping on board and saying, well, after my son was born, like you said, like, you know what, a couple of years, I'm like, I've got to make some different changes. What did you start to do? What made you lean towards the change? Because not only did you stop using, you did some other stuff too that we're going to talk about, but tell me about that aha moment of like, what am I doing here? I don't want to continue this cycle.
You know, unfortunately, the cycle lasted and it got really bad. Like I said, my dad had pretty much abandoned me for a big part of my life. When he found out I was having a son, almost 16 years ago, we healed our relationship. And then my dad became the dad I always wanted. And then he got cancer, and then he died.
Wow.
And then I became that angry, scared little boy, looking out the front door, wondering where my dad was and when he was going to show up. You know, and there were some other things that happened. I lost my job. I lost my hot rod. I was trying to buy a house. I lost the ability to buy that house. Are we still recording? Sorry.
Yep.
I got a bunch of drag. Okay.
Yeah.
I lost the ability to buy that house. And then I pretty much lost my mind. And it's funny, as I look back on the reflection of that, it seems to me that whatever evil lived in my father, when he died, it found a host in me. Like, my dad was a big man. I became a big man. I started using hard drugs again. My dad used hard drugs. I started gambling. I gambled everything away. My dad did that. And it became very eerie. And I don't know if it was this unconscious choice or it was self-loathing, or if it was all of the above. But I'm definitely a believer in good and evil, and they have energy, and the evil of it found me. And so it got real bad. And the funny thing is as I reflect back on everything, and I journal every day I journal. And as I look back on my journaling and I kind of start replaying everything, not in a negative context, but, you know, it's important to pay attention to the rearview mirror. You don't want to you don't want to stare at it for too long, because then you get drugged down by the past. But it's important to see where you were, so you can see the distance, that you've put between you and your past.
Yeah.
And I think it was COVID. To be honest, COVID made me have to look at my life, because my kids were home with me all the time. You know what I mean? And I started slowly seeing the decay in their own lives because of the decay in my life.
Ooh.
And so,
yeah.
It was having to be forced with being a dad again, and not being able to just escape while everyone left and me just hide out and my drug den and do dope. And it was, I realized how disgusting our lives had been because I became so disgusting. And that's when it was probably, March of 2020 that I started slowing down, and I was trying to change. And then it was, on my 40th birthday, I was just looking around, and I had no idea, not only physically who I was in the reflection in the mirror, because I was huge. I was well over 350 pounds, and and I'm only 6'1", and I wasn't a defensive lineman built.
Yeah.
It's a big fat jelly roll.
Yeah.
and I had no idea who the reflection in the mirror was, physically or emotionally, if you will.
Yeah.
And I said an empty prayer in vain that I think many of us say who get into addiction that deep, or it doesn't even matter if it's addiction. For a better word, a deep, dark depression. When you can't even see the light. I just said a prayer in vain. I was like, God, I don't know if you're real. I don't know if you hear me, but if you help me stop doing this, it's got to be, I don't know if it's going to get better, but it's got to be a place to start.
Yeah.
And then 1 month and 2 days after my 40th birthday, I grabbed all my dope, all my paraphernalia, broke it, flushed it, instantly regretted doing it.
Of course, we all do. Yep.
Right. Yeah. I was like, oh fuck, what did I just
What
do?
did I do? Yeah. Uh-huh.
What I do? Yeah. And then I've been clean ever since.
Brilliant.
And that was that. Oh man, it seems so almost foreign to me because of how much I have changed. And I'll be honest with you, there are days that I struggle with the guilt at times.
Yeah.
Because I'm just like, how was I ever that human being? Because who God has transformed me into, and the work that He continues to have me do through the people and the tools that He shows me, and I'm willing to pick up and use. I have morphed and I have changed, and it happens every 90 days or so that I'm just like, how was I ever that human being? Like, how can you be these two polar opposites and exist in the same being? And sometimes I struggle with that because it's like because I've always been a lover, and I have a huge heart, and I've been told that my heart is my greatest asset, my biggest weakness, by a few people that I deeply trust. And it's like, how did I ever hurt the people that I love the most in this world? Like I robbed, I stole, I ruined birthdays, like what, but again, it's like it was a sickness, and it was a multiple levels of sickness. It was not only addiction, but I was suicidally depressed, and it gets you when you start piling and piling and piling, and you run and you hide. It's much like in every cartoon. It's like when people ask me about this, I relate it to like every cartoon when the mom comes in and the room is just destroyed, and like, you need to clean your room, and the kid like takes everything in the room and shoves it in the closet, and they're like, yeah, and then all of a sudden the mom opens a closet and all that mess comes piling back down. Well, when you spend 20 plus years in addiction and you're running from your problems and you're full of doubt and insecurities and fear and everything else, you can stuff and you can stuff and you can stuff until that monster comes busting out of that closet, and then you're buried in your own feces.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what happened.
Yep. You're up to your neck in it. Absolutely. But here's the thing though.
Yeah.
It sounds like to a specific point, you did what I did, which was we did it ourselves. And this is kind of complex. This is complex because there was no one coming to rescue me, just like what you said. But the troops weren't coming. Like my family didn't care enough to even research enough to say, hey, there's this whole other world called treatment. None of that existed, circa, 1996, when I was like, I need a way out of here. And so I'm curious, like, what did you do? Because you're looking at that reflection, you're like, everything has to change. You do all that. You take some drastic measures. And people, man, they'll tell you this all the time. They'll say, no, it can't happen. You can't just make a decision and be done. And I say, baloney. Yes, you can, because I've done it. It sounds like you've done it. I've talked to many people that have done it. When you're done and you draw that line in the sand and you're serious, it can happen like that. But tell me, like, what did you do day 2, day 3? The snowball effect to where we are.
I think it was, I listened to Admiral McRaven's Make Your Bed speech.
Make Your Bed, yeah.
And and I was like, okay, at this point in time, I'm 350 plus pounds. I haven't worked. I've tried to kill myself. I mean, like, everything is bad.
And are we seriously talking like 2020? Is that when we're talking?
Yeah.
Holy crap, brother.
So September of 2020.
Wow.
And so I have a big dog, and he's just a big guy, but he was big like me because I wasn't able to take care of him. And I was just like, I may not make my bed every day, but I'm going to get up every morning. I'm going to do the dishes, and then Tank and I are going to go for a walk. That's
Tank.
my dog.
Yeah.
And
love it.
And that's what we did. And that's what I did until I couldn't remember doing anything else different, and then I added to it. And then I floundered for that first year of sobriety, like greatly. I did therapy for like 2 or 3 months, and that was okay. And then they put me on antidepressants, which I probably needed for a while because of the drug use and my chemical imbalance in my head. But then they would give me bigger doses, and I'd spike up and I'd spike down, and it wasn't really as effective as it. And I did a lot of therapy as a kid because, like I stated earlier, I had problems with anger, and so I've always thought I could outsmart most therapists, and like most therapists I find, like I don't really relate to, because
Yeah.
it's generally textbooked, and
Yeah.
when you've lived everything they've talked about in a textbook or what they're going to tell you, it's kind of like, it becomes redundant. But
Yep.
I struggled. I'll be really honest. Like my mental health was as bad or worse at times, because of the anxiety of like realizing the wreckage that I had created. And I was running around trying to save my marriage, trying to get a home, fix my relationship with my kids, fix my relationship with my family, fix my relationship with myself, get skinnier, be healthier, and I'm trying to find some magic
Walk
bullet,
the dog,
magic
all that.
wants.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it literally just started with walking my dog.
I love it.
Like everything that has transpired in my life from September 22nd, 2020, started with just walking my dog, because I needed that win. Like I like to call it like building a fire, right? You're lost out in the wilderness, and I was definitely lost out in the wilderness. You got to start a fire from scratch. You find some tinder, and you get a spark, and you get that tinder to go, and you protect that fire with everything you had.
Yeah.
And, walking the dog was my spark, because it made me feel like I was accomplishing something, because I hadn't accomplished anything for a very long time. Like I had no purpose, no path. I was, like there was a point in time in my life that I didn't leave my house. Like, I didn't even go outside for 8 months.
Yeah.
Like I lived in a little town, and I didn't go to the bigger town that next door for 6 years.
Wow.
Like I went no further from my house. I didn't go any further than my house to the convenience store.
Wow.
For like almost 6 years.
They knew you by name. They're like, hey, James. Yeah, like, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, but that's the only place I ever went. That's the only place I ever went. Like I didn't go grocery shopping. I didn't go to any of my kids' events. I didn't, like, part of it was a shame of the way I was living, and part of it was a shame of the way I looked. Part of it was I felt like I was so negative that I was just going to bring negative energy anywhere I went. I didn't want to, like, when somebody's like, I'm a pretty honest person. And so even in that moment in time, if someone had been like, well, how are you going? I'd have been like, dude, I'm, like nobody wants to hear you. I'm fucking horrible, and I'm ready to blow my brains out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, right. And I don't want to bring that to where I'm at, because A, it's embarrassing, and B, nobody wants to hear that. And so it literally started with walking and doing the dishes every day, because it made me feel like I was doing something good.
It's incredible.
And when I first started walking, I could barely get up the hill I lived on. Like, I was in bad shape. Like I lost the toenails on my first 3 toes from my big toe in on my right leg, because I had such poor circulation, and I was so large that I lost all the hair on my legs. Like I was in bad shape, and then it was, I realized I couldn't kill myself, because I couldn't do that to my kids. And I don't necessarily need to tell the whole gory detail of that whole event, but I tried to give myself, this is how depraved I was. I tried to give myself a heart attack, knowing that, like, if I do enough speed and I eat poorly enough and I get big enough and fat enough, that I'm probably going to die of a heart attack, and at least it won't look like suicide.
Yeah.
And that's messed up thoughts. And,
it is. But brother, I wonder how many people have done that though, right? Because of that mindset. And you're right. Like, I'll just keep doing this path of least resistance, but knowing that, like, God has a different plan for you. This is crazy. Like,
amen.
It's wild, because listeners, if you could see James here, you'd be like, there's no way. When you send me those pictures, brother, I'm like, no way. Because I've seen the guy holding the cake before, brother. I know who that guy is. And when I saw your next picture, I'm like, there's no way. But that means that when you were seriously, like, making the decision, meaning you cut in and removed, you made an incision to make a decision, right? Like, you changed everything. Like,
everything.
But people are going to look at you and be like, well, for you it was easy. There's no way in hell that was easy. Was it?
It's not been easy. And it's something like, because I try to limit most of my social media, because ultimately my goal in life is, like, I'm going back to school for addiction counseling, and then I want to be.
I was going to ask you that, because I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah. Okay. We'll get into that too.
And then I want to be then I want to become a licensed therapist, but I also want to be able to travel and talk and do what I'm doing right now, because God has given me a gift of speech. Like, it got me in trouble all the way through school, but I'm a good orator, and I can communicate well. And I know a lot of people have had it much worse. People in my own life that I know personally have had it much worse. But very few people that I know um, are willing to put in the work that I have to overcome what I have. And I think that's
100%.
um, the beautiful part of my story is, and something I share with people is like, my goal in life is to become the unlikely hero of my own story. Because anyone that knew me like for the last 20 years would never, I'm the last person they would have assumed that would not only have gotten sober, but put in the work to lose 155 pounds, and put in the work to become a better father, and put in the work to become a better me, and become a better partner and a better friend. And, but that's the transformational power of God. And people want to argue with that. And, I've had people say, well, of course you're going to believe in God. What else are you going to do? Well, like, dude, I could have done anything else. Like,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
yeah. But I'm not ignorant to the fact that, like, there have been things in my life, and the fact that I'm meeting you, because I got to know Brock through, watching and listening to a comment that he made on Marcus Torgerson's live on Instagram, right? Like,
Hmm.
there's these people that have been placed in my life that were separated geographically. Some people in my life that I talk to daily are all the way over in Australia.
Yeah.
Like, things like that just don't happen. Like, and I
Mm-mm.
don't believe in coincidence. And there's been a few other things along this journey that to deny that there isn't divine intervention would mean I'm arrogant and ignorant. And I try not to be either of those two things.
It's
And
true. It's true.
it is true. It
But
is true.
see, and the thing that
And
I'm seeing with you, though, brother, and that's one thing I wanted to know, is because again, you're playing you're playing a page from the playbook that I wrote from, and that's the same thing, right? Guys like you and me, who really shouldn't be doing what we're doing. Like, it's funny that that's what you want to do, and I want to help you because that's what I did. The substance abuse counseling path, and then the licensed mental health therapist path, and then the addict to athlete stuff. But dude, I dropped out of high school. I was a high school dropout. There's no way. Like, I can't do this. Like, I come from a family that, like, was so screwed up. No one ever graduated high school. I became the first person to graduate high school, let alone go to college. But it's because I had some people in my life that said, dude, you can do better than this. But my question for you is the same thing I've asked myself. That's like, how do guys like you and me and some of these others that we align ourselves with, and so many of you listeners out there, how do we have these hearts that beat in a rhythm of being an empath at the same time have such tremendous struggles with this kind of stuff, right? Because really, this stuff should have hardened us to the point by which we could never be broken, but we're just rough on the exterior, interior. How in the world did you maintain, because I can see it, I can feel it from you, this empath, this rhythm of being an empath too, because you don't do what you're doing if you're not. I bumped into those counselors too. It's crazy. My schedule gets so packed because people are like, Blue, you have a different approach to therapy. It's like, well, because I feel it. We feel it different. How in the world did you stay to that level of having a soft interior at the same time going through hell?
well, to put it into religious perspective, it's what I'm called to do.
There you go.
Right? It's like, in my mind,
Sole purpose.
so trust me, I'm no theologian, and there's not. My understanding of Bible is very limited. But what I do grasp is that when we are in service of others, when we are doing more for the people with less, or the people that need us, then I am doing what God's called me to do.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, dude, there's times, brother, when it is difficult, and there's times I want to throw my hands up in the air and go, what the hell is all this worth? Because I've put in a ton of work, and I don't know if I'm really making any progress, But I think that's just the enemy trying to get you down, because the devil doesn't want to see you succeed.
No.
Especially people who come from where we came from. Like, no, because we've been easy prey for all our lives, and I was more than willing to do the devil's work. And when you start to make those changes, I think we can harden our armor, but there's always chinks in it. There's always little areas for that doubt and the fear to creep in and attack you. And I think it's just it's a relentless and tenacious drive that sometimes it's like I already know what the outcome of quitting is going to be. I already know the outcome of what the choices I would have made or could have made would be, because I've already lived that. I have never lived a life of discipline and consistency and structure and trying each day to be. I've never done that. So there's I want to see what this brings. And I think that's just it. But I think the thing is, it's like when you have escaped the darkness and truly escaped the darkness, if I can just sprinkle a little seed of change and hope in someone's life, and be it maybe they're 16 or 17 years old, or they're 25, or they're 30, or whatever. If I can save them from making that same mistake, or not, I take that back. I can't save anybody. That's not my job. But if I can sprinkle that seed and change and hope in their life, and say, well, hey, if this guy can do it, and maybe I can do something different, and I can save them the despair of, man, that's what, I think that's what blows my mind, is that, like, all the things that I see that I want in life right now, I had, but I took all those for granted, and I put everything in my joy in a material world, and things that can be taken away.
Yeah.
And I think that through this, I've learned that joy is something that the Lord puts in your spirit and on your heart. And it doesn't matter where or what you have. You can always have joy, because I know that I'm being taken care of, and I'm provided for, and I'm loved by something much greater than I've ever experienced in my life.
Dude, you've discovered your sole purpose, the reason you're here. And I think that so many times, us in our lives, we neglect this so much, because we do a ton of feeling what we're supposed to do, but we do very little thinking about what we're supposed to do. But all of those thoughts create the feelings that create the chaos sometimes. And so when you start producing and saying, hey, man, I'm destined for bigger things here, James, what you're saying isn't, I hate to say it, right? And you know this, it's not unique at all. What we're doing, listeners, is not unique. It's like the next step. So it doesn't matter if you are a healer, or if you're a servant, or if you're a creator, whatever it is your sole purpose is, once you get yourself on that track and you discover it through, again, some surrender, some understanding, some willingness, guys, you stay on that path and you stay in motion. I've been clean now for 20 plus years. I don't even know. I don't count anymore, because I think that's kind of dumb, because it's become such a lifestyle. But every time I deviate, try to do something else, like, hey, I'm gonna be an artist, and I try to do something, I suck at it. Like, I'm gonna be a builder, and I try to create building, add onto my house, like it falls down. I'm like, I can't do that. But the service aspect, that's my niche, and I found a way to make a lifestyle out of it. So I think what you're saying, listeners, is if you're listening to what James is saying, there are real principles in what he's talking about, simply about taking that step out of yourself, looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, I'm destined for something greater than this. But I'm curious, man, you've made huge changes in a very small amount of time. Why haven't you said, all right, enough is enough, I'm done? Why are you still making these changes? Because you're not finished yet. I can tell the refinement's still happening with you. That's my first question. And the second one is, what are the bystanders? What are the others, the people that are close to you? What are they seeing and thinking about you?
Well, to answer your first question, kind of going back to your statement about, greater, or, and the greater, to me, it is not I shouldn't say that. There are some material things, like, because of the destruction of my past and not working, and it being 42 years old, like, man, I'm living in a single wide trailer with 4 people and 2 bedrooms. Like, there are things that, for a little bit better stability and ease, that I definitely want. And I should, but that's want. Is it a need? I don't know. But the need is, and why I keep going, is because I never held myself to greater.
Yeah.
And I know that I'm being called to greater. Like,
Huge.
God has put this on my heart
Huge.
to be greater. And, I can struggle with it, because I'm impatient, what I mean? Like, and that's something that, like, that's the one goal I wrote down. Like, I have other goals, but the one goal that I wrote down in my journal is to learn to be still in His presence.
Boom.
And trust God more, because, because the one thing that has helped me get to where I am today is that I haven't slowed down, right? Like, I'm in the gym 5 days a week. I tried to run, but from being so big, I have issues with my knee and ankle. It's probably needs surgical repair, but as a person who does labor still, and I can't afford to be down for 6 months. So I'm still out. I still outwalk at a minimum of 5 miles a day. I mean, and so if on Sundays I do like closer to 10, because that's the one day I don't go to the gym. Usually, sometimes I do 6 days, but always 5 days. Like, and then
Brilliant.
there are things that I do every day and that I have to do that I don't deviate from, because when I do deviate from them, I instantly see a regression in my day.
Yeah.
And I think that's just it. It's like I kind of said it earlier, like I know what would happen if I would stay here. It would just be comfortable. And I don't, and not that comfort is a problem, but even in my religious views,
you've done that, right? Yeah.
I've been comfortable, and being comfortable is what led me to being completely uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I think there's a difference between discomfort and pain. Yeah. And that's where I don't want to go back to the pain, but I don't mind the discomfort, because the discomfort has led me to the growth that I'm experiencing.
That is rad. I love that. Say that again, listeners. Tune in. James, say that again. Discomfort and pain.
Yeah, there's a difference between discomfort and pain. I've experienced the pain. Pain is just what it is. It's painful and it's not good. Discomfort is good. Discomfort is what makes a diamond. A discomfort is what makes a pearl. And I want to be that pearl. I want to be that diamond.
Brilliant.
Because I think and it's true for everyone I've talked to, who has been through a similar situation, or has, be it sexual abuse, physical abuse, lived through the trauma, became an addict, tried to kill themselves, whatever it was, depressed, anxiety, anyone who's overcome that and moved forward, they find their purpose.
Yep.
And that's just it. It's like, kind of like you're saying, like I ran from my purpose probably all my life, and it has been in service, because the most success I've ever had professionally was I was a chef, and I'm talented when it comes to that, but that is service work. It is being in service of others, and I don't mind doing that. But at the same time, like, the people I want to help, I want to help. And that's kind of why I got frustrated with being a chef. Is like, man, the people I'm in service to don't need my help.
No.
They have all the needs they need. And there's a whole world of people out there that are hurting and suffering in silence, that are too afraid, especially men, that are too afraid to say, hey, I'm hurting and I need help. And I think, just like you, being a therapist and a counselor, you don't come across, and your look isn't of an Ivy League guy in a tweed blazer, smoking a pipe, coming from a textbook, right? Like, you or I, if we were in that situation, going to that therapy, like, how can I relate to you, right? Exactly. And I think that's the thing is that, and that's why I want to do what I want to do, is because I'm not the most manly man in the world, but I'm pretty manly, and hurt men need each other.
They do.
Hurt men will help heal each other, and when hurt men heal each other, then we raise better sons who become better leaders, and it's a trickle-down effect in our whole community, and everything gets better because we have better fathers who raise better sons and better daughters who are more productive, who are kinder and gentler, but with a warrior spirit, right? It's what did my son say the other day? It's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
Holy cow. That's a brilliant kid. You better get him a therapist degree too. Jeez. He is. That's amazing. Both my kids are. Yeah, he's a special soul. My son is, and so is my daughter, for that matter. They just did their own. My daughter is really just starting to come into her own, but my son is an old soul, and he's a special light in this world, and I hope he continues to grow in the path that he has been. He's a huge reason why I went back to church, to be honest with you. That's cool. Anyway, that's amazing. But what you're saying too is, when our wounds cease to be the source of shame and become a source of healing, I'm a firm believer that we become wounded healers, and that's exactly what you're talking about. And listeners, this is what all of us have, I think, the ability to do, so long as we're willing to understand that, like, compassion asks us to go to places that it hurts. I mean, James, you've seen this, right? To enter to a place of pain, like you said, to share the brokenness, to share the fear, to share some of that confusion and the anguish. And then compassion challenges us to cry out a little bit with those in misery, and to those who mourn, because you felt that too, and with those who kind of keep themselves, lonely. And it requires us to be weak with the weak. And I love it, because what it ultimately means is that is the immersion into the full presence of us being human, and so when we can do that, and at the same time uplift and point out and teach and learn and listen, it boils down to like this, brother. Like, well, then who heals the healers, right? Well, we both know that God does, and like it or not, God does, because we're all broken people. So I'm loving what you're saying, man, and it boggles my mind that so many of us don't rise to the occasion because we don't believe enough in ourselves. Because like I said, the troops aren't coming to rescue any of us, James. You know this. It was you that made the decision when you saw that reflection to put you here now. And listeners, I'm telling you, I can't wait to post your pictures, James, because people will not believe that like that was you like a couple years ago and this is you now. Like it is so.
You got to show that.
It's crazy.
It is. It is crazy.
I'm like, is this really him? I had to line him up. I'm like, it is. It's
yeah, dude, it's like the tattoos don't lie.
No,
it is wild. It is wild, and it is. I hate like giving patting myself on the back because I don't want to hang my hat on any. I don't want to hang my hat on any of my past accomplishments because it is always an upward and forward trajectory. Even if I'm falling down, I'm falling face first, and if I can't walk, I crawl. And
absolutely,
it's okay, and I'm learning. And it's still a work in progress. I'm learning with it to be okay if it's just a nanometer a day.
Yeah.
Babies, like, because I didn't lose 155 pounds overnight. I haven't gotten to be in the best shape of my adult life overnight. It's been almost a 2.5 year process.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I lied. I used my sobriety date as the day I got healthy, but I didn't really start to work on losing weight until April of 21.
Wow.
So
dude. Incredible.
And so to just kind of touch on that story a little bit, I knew I needed to lose weight. And like I said, I started walking, and then I was walking more, and then I got down to where I was wearing I could put jeans on again because I was only wearing like basketball shorts and sweatpants because I was too embarrassed to go.
Yeah. So
I got into I bought myself a size 42, and I could barely button a double extra large like flannel because I'm in the Northwest and I'm a Gen Xer and I still like 501s and flannels.
Yep. There you go.
I think,
absolutely.
Yeah, that's me in a nutshell. But so I was able to do that, and then I lost my house. I had nowhere to go with my dog, and my mom's boyfriend, who I love dearly, let me come stay with him on the Oregon coast. And he had a scale, and I had not stepped on a scale. But at this point, I know I had probably lost like at least 30 pounds. And I stepped on the scale, I was 322 pounds. And I was like, I knew I was probably 300 pounds, but I was hoping that the work I had done was going to put me, a little bit closer just to 300. But I was like 320 pounds. So this is July, the 4th of July weekend, the weekend of 4th of July, 2021. I'm like, dude, 320 pounds is a lot. And so since then, and that's when I really started putting in the effort to okay, I need to do something. I really need to do something different. So I am now like 194 pounds.
Man.
So in a year and a half, I've it's not even, so it'll be 2 years this April. I've lost 155 pounds.
That's another human being, dude, like 2 times over. That's crazy. Like,
it is.
You look at those pictures and you see that stuff. Does it seem like you? Does it seem like you're you? You look back through the same eyes, but like, it's got to be like this whole different person to a certain degree.
It is, and I am I am a whole different person. And like I've said to many people, is that God has left no stone unturned in my life. Is everything perfect? No, I don't. I'm still working on financial stability. I'm still trying to improve relationships with people that are important to me, that are worth repairing. Because some stuff you just have to let go.
I know.
My very best friend in the whole world is still using. I love him to death. He is a brother, but I've had to let him go because I have to protect myself, right?
Exactly,
and that's a relationship that I don't know if I'll ever get back. I love him, and if he hears this, he knows who he is. I love him to death, and he's my brother, but at the same time, like, I have to protect what I have, and I'm very protective of certain things in my life. My relationship with my relationship with God, my relationship with my children, my physical health, and my mental health. Like, I protect, and I have tools in place that I use for all those things. And there's nothing that I will do that will compromise that, because once I start compromising one, I'm starting a downward spiral to back into addiction. And so,
Yeah, you bring up a good point like that too, brother, because, I'm not a 12-step guy. I think they have their place, but we do things a little bit different here on Team Addict to Athlete. But, there's this one interesting thing, the book I read years and years and years ago. It was called My Friend Ebby, and basically it was Dr. Bob, no, sorry, it wasn't Dr. Bob, it was Bill W. that was saying he had this friend named Ebby, and it was crazy because as Bill started to kind of change his life and create this program and align himself with Dr. Bob, and they wrote these 12 steps and stuff, he tried to bring in some of his friends, and Ebby was one of them, and Ebby was his ride or die guy. And what happened was, like, he saw the change, he saw everything going on, and Ebby distanced himself, and he lost that relationship, and it always bothered him that, like, why wouldn't he come? It's because it wasn't his journey. And it was so hard for him. And I know what you're talking about. I've had to do the same thing, but even with family, I'm like, I cannot have you, family, in my life because you're dangerous. You're trying to take what I've earned here, and I can't have that. When you start doing that and start understanding that it's a privilege to have a relationship, it's not a right, you can go back and mend those that need mending, and they'll see it because they see you, and they're like, you're making changes, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually. But there's also those you have to let go. And that is, like you said, one of the hardest things to do, because we'll look at you, Mr. High and Mighty. You remember those days when it was just me and you, and you're like, yeah, I do, brother, but I need this path. You're more than welcome to come with me, but there becomes that point of no return where you can't keep going back and bringing them on board. And I could tell that still gets to you, because I watched your face flinch when you were talking about that, because relationships are why we're doing this whole thing, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, absolutely. And then there's still a personal relationship in mine that I'll be honest, it's with my wife. We've been separated for a while. I love her dearly. I caused a lot of trauma and damage in that relationship, and I don't know where it's going to lead. It's not up to me, but I'm at this moment in time, I'm still willing to make amends and try to be her husband and a better husband than I ever was, and a better friend. But I'm going to leave that up to God, because it's not up to me to decide.
Yeah.
If it's His will, then His will be done. But it is difficult. It's hard. And especially where I'm at right now, it's like, man, I spend a lot of time alone, because not that I think I'm better than anyone from my past.
No,
but
it's not what
I don't know if you stuck around where you were, or if you've moved, but I moved back home from the Bay Area in California back to where I live, which is about 45 minutes southwest of Portland, in the heart of Willamette Valley in the wine country here. It's a real big deal, which is secondary, but you move past people, and not that I think I'm better than anyone, and that's the last thing I would ever say to anybody, but I also know that what I want is better than what most people want.
Exactly.
But the people who have where I want to go, I don't necessarily, and not that anyone has been shy, and it's probably all in my own head, but it's like, I don't necessarily feel like I fit in with the people where I'm trying to be, and I definitely don't want to be with the people where I came from. And so it's this weird gray area where you're like, well, where do I fit in?
Yeah.
And it is difficult, because as human beings, I love stoicism, but the one thing I argue with stoicism is that as human beings, we need other human beings in our lives, because we are social creatures. It is difficult, and there are times where loneliness really gets to me. Like, I can imagine. It's that the halt. Hungry, angry, lonely, and tired, and sometimes it is lonely. But I'm reminded that this journey is narrow, and it is mine, and that's okay. Like, I may be alone, but I'm never. Like, I may be lonely, but I'm never alone.
True.
I know that God is guiding me, and so, but kind of I want to backtrack a little bit, talking about, you asked me about what this journey has done for the people that are in my immediate bubble. Yeah, man, it is, it has helped heal my son, because he wondered what happened to his dad for so long and why his dad just abandoned him. I think he sees the hard work that I've done, that I've picked myself up from the bottom, and I've scraped and crawled, and I've worked hard, and I've changed spiritually and emotionally and mentally. It's done the same for my mom. it's helping my daughter. I think my kid's mom, she sees it. I think it is at least softening her heart to the idea of change.
Hmm.
And she's gone through a lot too, and not only just what I've put her through, but
Absolutely.
with her own trauma from her life. It's
Yeah.
but I think my sisters, like I have, uh, this journey has created the tightest family unit I've ever had in my life. You know what I mean? Like even my son and I were talking about this, and he's like, "Dad, had mom left you and she moved away, I wouldn't be where I am today because you wouldn't be who you are today."
Wow.
You know, and so
Good grief.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, it was real. Like I said, he's a pretty deep kid.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it does change, and I'm sure it did the same for you, and it
Hmm.
continues to do the same for you because growth is never ending. There is
Mm-mm.
no I have no destination in mind, right? Like
Yeah.
it's all about the journey. It's all about the journey. And as the more you climb, of course there's valleys. I try not to allow the valleys to last very long, but man, it's not easy, and it is not for the faint of heart.
No.
It's I realized how easy it was to give up a long time ago.
Yeah.
Like, as I did, I was so angry as a child that I pretty much just gave up at like 13 years old. Like I was like, dude, like I don't want to be like my stepdad because he's angry and pissed off because he hates his job. Like, why do I want to just work hard so I can be angry and pissed off? Like that doesn't
Yeah.
make any
That doesn't
sense. Like,
sound like good. Yeah. That doesn't sound like joy to
yeah,
me.
like what is the
Yeah.
point? Yeah, like right. And it's just and so I just gave up. And so I guess that's what keeps me driving. It's like I already know the outcome of giving up.
Hmm.
And as a person who's always told I was a leader, as I have changed, the people that are around me have changed too. And man, it's so cool. Like I talk to my little sisters and I are 10 and, well, 9.5 and 12.5 years age difference. And so that age gap as a child and the life I lived compared to the life they lived is, I, it's hard to call myself a black sheep when my mother and my father are my mother and my father because
Yeah.
they're black sheep. So
Yeah.
it's not like I'm odd. I'm odd to my mom and my dad,
Second
because I have a
generation black
different
sheep.
dad than my.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, exactly. But mine was definitely a black sheep compared to my little sisters. But it's amazing. Like my 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 little sisters and I have this relationship that I think we probably all wanted and didn't know how. And it wasn't even like I went out of my way to develop the relationship we happened. It just organically happened because I changed so much,
Yeah.
and me changing and softening my heart and softening my lifestyle uh, allowed them to feel confident and comfortable with me. And it's amazing. Like I love that. Like I have a relationship with my nieces, and I wasn't even there for the first couple of years of my first niece's life because why would they want me around? Like
Exactly.
dude, like I was not.
Man.
I wouldn't have wanted me around any shit. I didn't even want myself around my own kids.
Exactly. Yeah, you try to separate yourself from even that, so it makes perfect sense. But you're
I
right.
did. I
Hmm.
did. I absolutely did because I felt like I was such a drag. And I think that's what sucks. It's like everything that I want in life, I had. Like the important things in life I had. I've gotten most of that back, but in the important things in life that I still truly want, I had. And I took that for granted. And I think it's that because I'm not well, I was a really selfish person as a drug addict, but that's the drugs, right? Like
Yeah.
you want to tell me, you can't tell me that the devil doesn't exist because he lives in a bag of speed and he lives in a bag of heroin and now he lives in a pill called fentanyl. And
Exactly. Yep.
it will. I've seen meth and heroin rob great human beings of their lives
Here,
overnight,
here.
like literally in a
Hmm.
snap. And you can't tell me that evil doesn't exist.
Oh,
It's like it's funny.
it's there.
I have a, a a man named Jason Redmond who is, for lack of a better term, at least an acquaintance. Like we know each other. We spoke. I don't know if you know who Jason Redmond is,
Hmm.
but he's an incredible human being. He was a Navy SEAL who
Brilliant.
suffered mortal wound. He was a Navy SEAL who suffered mortal wounds. Like the fact that he's alive is proof that there's a God. Like the dude,
Miracle. Hmm.
it was physically, yeah. But this was a huge part of my story, and I don't know why I've kind of shared this. Was like, so I was, like I said earlier, I was really struggling with my mental health. that first year, like really bad. And
Mm-hmm.
I was driving to one of my son's football games, and I'm like, God, I just really need something to like quiet that white noise, because I'm not like, here I am a year off of meth and I'm still not sleeping, and not because like it was strictly because I could not shut my brain off, because I was
Yeah.
so anxious and so worried about everything that was wrong in my life. And I'm like, I need something. And this is where, because it still took me a while after this happened to be
For
like, okay,
sure.
God is working in my life, like, because I'm grateful that God didn't reveal himself to me like he has now, because I would have been like so overwhelmed, I wouldn't have grasped it and probably would have
Mm-mm.
ran from it.
Yep.
But I'm like, okay, I need something. So I'm driving to the game, and Jason Redman's TED Talk came on.
Mm.
And Jason was shot in the face, almost lost his arm. His arm is hinged at a 90, and he's been lucky to have it and have an elbow.
Oh.
Um, and he tells this whole story, and I'm like, James, what the hell are you even complaining about? Like,
Yeah.
this man was like missing his nose, got shot in the cheek. Like, this dude has lived. And I'm like, but then he softens this incredible war story, right? And then he softens it and was like, everyone is facing an ambush. It doesn't matter if they're real bullets or if they're life bullets. We all get hit with an ambush, and it's what you do with that. And I'm like, dude, it inspired me
Dang.
instantly. And then
Yeah.
I joined his Overcome Army. I've gotten a chance to speak to him, like I'm speaking to you now. And it was funny, is like, I was talking to him, it's like, one thing I don't know, for lack of a better word, regret. I really wish I would have been in a mindset enough after high school to join the military, because I don't know if it would have worked, but it's funny. Like, my reason for not joining the military was I didn't want to be told what to do. But then I spent 20 years of my life being controlled by an inanimate object.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Brilliant.
Like,
Yeah.
drugs and
Substance.
alcohol,
Mm-hmm.
like substances, something that has no life. That's not even, some of it wasn't even organic.
Brilliant
Controlled what I
observation.
did.
Yes.
And it's just like, and it is that. But it's like, so then, then I started in his program, the Overcome Army, and I
Nice.
met a lot of fantastic human beings that, even though I'm not directly involved in the Overcome Army anymore,
Mm-hmm.
I'm still in contact with many of those people.
That's
But that's
amazing.
just it. It's like,
Yeah.
it gave me these tools that helped me. I like kind of, you're like, well, how did you do this so quick? Well, it's because God gave me amazing tools and amazing human beings that had already experienced much of what I've gone through, be it in personal grief or coming from a very similar background, who are a little older, who have more experience, and they gave me willingly shared love, knowledge, and these tools have
Amazing.
changed with me. And so it helped speed up my process, and I didn't have to do a lot of guesswork because people laid out the tools for me. And so, man, that was a huge help. And ever since January of last year, the changes have been rather rapid. And I think that's just it. It's like, once you commit to something,
Yeah.
and you
Yep.
are willing to when you are willing to commit at all costs, and never, like, don't get me wrong, I try to be a joy all the time, but there are days that I'm just like,
No
what
joke.
the F is the point?
Like, shut
What
the
the F is
door.
the
Yeah.
point in this? And
You're like,
yeah, like, I'm done. Like, I'm going to
Uh-huh.
throw my hands up in the air. I quit. Like, this is just,
Yeah.
it's too damn hard. And then I go to the gym anyway. I have a little pity party with myself, and I just continue on.
That's
And
amazing.
the next day, it's not that. And it's, I think that's just it. It's like, what do you want? Like, it doesn't, like, it's like what I tell, like, I was talking to somebody the other day that's struggling. I'm like, you don't got to do the same stuff that I do,
Mm.
right? But you got to you create that same routine, those same patterns that make you feel good and
Yep.
healthy feel good. Not the drugs and alcohol feel good, not porn feel good, not shopping feel good, not indulging in a bunch of junk food and stuffing all your fears with food or drink
Yeah.
or whatever, but like putting in work that actually makes you feel good, and then doing that every day, and start a little bit and just get that ball rolling, and just let it, that snowball effect. And I think that's just it. It's that, but so many people are afraid to do that. They're afraid to be introspective. They're afraid to look
Yeah.
at the dirt in their lives and then unpack themselves from it, because it is. And especially if you've had like a lot of serious trauma in life. I'm like, don't get me wrong, like, my life was not easy, but it's not like it wasn't like it was horrid, and I was living in an infested, disgusting filth. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I was angry, and there's a lot of drugs, and then I was abandoned by my dad. But there's a lot of people that have it way worse, and it is hard to unpack that trauma and look at it. And I think that's just it. It's just how willing are you to work hard, and how willing are you to be honest with yourself?
Brilliant. Yeah.
And then it's that level of honesty that I think very few people are willing to have that honest conversation with themselves.
Exactly, man. Brother, the cool thing about this is you got to promise that you'll come back on the show, because you're going to inspire a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Man. And I want to help.
Absolutely.
I want to help any way I can to get you where you're going, because we need more troops on the field, like what you're talking about. How do people find you? Do you, I mean, you're not on social media a lot, but what other podcasts have you done? What do you do? How do we find you?
I've done, I've done the Strong Enough podcast with Claudia King, and Claudia's awesome. I did Brock's podcast, Chase the Base. I did another one called Risen Fallen with a man from Vancouver, BC. He's awesome too. He's a great guy.
Nice.
And now this one, you can find me on Instagram. Call Healing Scars, all one word. Scars is SKARZ.
Love it.
Because regular Scars was already taken, and that's where you can find me, or you can just Google search or Facebook just James Yount, and you'll see my face, and that's about it. It's been a beautiful journey, and I'm really excited for this next phase. I start school full time next week.
Brilliant. You're gonna love it.
So I am. I was going back to school at like my life kind of was peaking in my early 30s, and I was going back to school, I was getting ready to buy a house. But like I said, it was there was no foundation. It wasn't based on anything concrete.
Yeah,
man. My foundation was built in the sand.
Yep.
And it wilt. It didn't take much for it to crumble.
Exactly.
And when it crumbled, I ran to what I knew, right? And that was one great thing about therapy, is that at least they didn't make me feel like a piece of shit for being an addict. Like,
exactly.
They're like, dude, this is just what you knew how to cope with. It was your coping. Was it a good coping mechanism? No, but it was a coping mechanism, and that's what
it
I
got
knew.
you to where you are now. To that certain degree, it's like that resistance to the what is the cost of suffering. You leaned into it. I love it.
Right. And it's been fun, man. And thank you for having me on.
Yeah.
But if anyone is listening to this and they need to find me and they have questions, man, I am always more than willing. I mean, for lack of a better word, help. I can't solve anyone's problems. I wouldn't pretend to be a therapist or a counselor, but I do have a lot of life experience in it.
But that's what it really is, man. Be honest. That's what it really is. I mean, we get these degrees, and that's what the funny thing. I have these degrees on the wall. That's great. But now it says that I can do this without getting sued. But all in the same breath, like, we're humans. We got to communicate with each other. Like you said, we're not meant to be alone. And so I know that the athletes, we have thousands of athletes that I know could benefit from you. But yeah, brother, thank you for taking the time. And listeners, you've been well fed. I mean, this is going to be an awesome kickoff to the 2023 year. And that's why we wanted to kind of book James on here now. I'm like, we could do it Friday, but if you could do it somehow Monday, we can post it right away.
Monday works out great. Today worked out really good. But one thing I would like to say is that like my ultimate goal in this is to create a faith-based recovery fitness center.
I love it.
Like that's why I love Brock was like, hey, Addict Athlete, because I hadn't watched or listened to Addict Athlete, but I do listen to Agents of Recovery, so I knew enough about you, and I'm like, dude, Addict Athlete, like that is. I mean, I'm not like I'm running around playing basketball or playing football again or anything like that, but I'm definitely in an athletic shape, and I went from an obese addict to the best shape of my life at 42 years old. And dude, there's when we take that whole healing, physical, mental, and spiritual, and we start like truly working on all those things, it does amazing things to your body. Will it fix everything? Will it cure cancer? But man, you eat well, you sleep well, you exercise, you do the personal work to improve your mental health, and you grow spiritually, like good things will happen. And like
it's guaranteed.
Good things will guaranteed.
It's guaranteed.
Will it fix it all? Absolutely guaranteed.
Yeah.
And so, man, Yeah, dude, I love Addict Athlete. I think that's where the rubber hits the road.
We will definitely be here to support you, brother, to get you what you need and to be a resource for you, man. But yeah, thank you so much, James.
Thanks, my friend.
Yeah, we'll definitely be staying in touch. But listeners, you've been well fed. Remember, check the website, addicttoathlete.org. We got open gym times. We've got all kinds of stuff coming on the horizon. The 2023 race calendar is now beginning to be formed, so keep an eye on social medias for that. And athletes, until next time, continue to turn that mess of addiction into the message of your sobriety.
We would like to thank our Patreon subscribers. If you're interested in becoming a Patreon, check out patreon.com/addicttoathlete. There you can see our fundraising platforms and gain access to all of our bonus episodes and receive exclusive A2A swag. We'd like to thank our superfans, Karen Hardy, Steve Riggs, Tracy Whitby, Jerem Thurston, Tara Butson, Holly Davies, Scott Foster, Brett Frew, Chris Williams, and Sensei KP Brown. Then our rookie levels, Sione Mary Inuk, Sherry Polson, and Earl Dyer. Pro level, Andrew Baird, Wendell Wood, and Gary Thurston. And champion level subscribers, the Robinson family, and Ron and Dee Loesch. Thank you all. Check out patreon.com.